Welcome to Lunch with Leaders, the podcast where we explore what it takes to lead, thrive, and create lasting impact. I'm Adesileji Dogalanya, a TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, and the founder of African Women in STEM. Each episode features insightful conversations with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders from around the world who are transforming cultures, redefining leadership, and shaping the future of work. Together, we'll share the stories, strategies, and mindsets that will empower women in STEM to amplify their visibility, influence, and impact. So if you're ready to lead boldly, amplify your voice, and help influence what leadership looks like for women in STEM, hit follow, share this podcast, and join us every week for impactful conversations, powerful stories, and practical strategies. So our guest today is Veena Chugh. Veena is a TEDx speaker, HR leader, and CEO of Author Advisors. She's an author with over 2 decades of diverse experience across human resources, sales, operations, and administration in India and Indonesia. She served as the HR head, taught human resources management as a visiting faculty, and led transformative workshops on leadership, personal growth, and mindful living. So Veena is the author of A Pink Rose and Other Short Stories, and a contributing author to 2 published anthologies, Seven Lee of Life, and the other one is My Marriage, Bliss versus Curse. So I'm excited to talk to Veena today. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad you're here. Hello, Veena.
Yeah, hi, Adad. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. It's an honor, and it's so good to see you today. And I'm
Yeah, it's an
excited.
honor for me.
I'm excited about what's going to evolve in our conversation today.
So Veena, your journey, you've done a lot. I read your bio right now. You're primarily in HR, but you also are very focused on leadership, which is one of the reasons why we're here. But you also focus on mindful living, financial empowerment, and storytelling that I absolutely love. So I want to say, what is it that kind of got you into all of this? Is there an experience that you had early in life going to this part, or something that happened in your career that made you feel like you needed to expand into all these things and help people have more meaning in their lives?
It's very interesting, Ada. So, to your question, whether I really planned it, no, it didn't. It's about life, the way life started happening. That's how I showed up. And yes, there are some deep experiences which started as early as my teen years. A lot of those experiences, shaped me the way, the kind of stuff that I do today. So I would touch upon those years because those were the foundation years. During the teen years, it's an age of raging hormones, and you're like, you want to do so many things. You want to kind of break from the fold of your family. You want to explore life. You want to understand many things. But right in midst of all that, one of the things that hit me hard was depression. I didn't even know that I was depressed. I didn't know clinically I was depressed in that sense. So that was one episode. But definitely that depression was just maybe the outcome. There were a lot of other incidents happening in my life. I went through a heartbreak. I also had, my family went through absolute financial crisis. Like my dad was running his business. We came to a point where he didn't have the capital to run his business further because it was not making any profit. He started borrowing money from outside, and it put us into a situation we had to borrow money to buy even our groceries. We were in that situation. We've also been in a situation where I clearly remember this. It was a festival night, and Diwali is a big festival in India. We had no money. For some strange reason, that evening, which is the main Diwali day, the power went off. There was some situation and the power went off. I clearly remember sitting in this room, dark. We have no money. We probably had just about managed to get a meal. I absolutely felt like it was the darkest night. So Diwali actually is the darkest night, but I actually felt it as the darkest night of my life because I felt that we don't have money and we are in this situation. How did we land up here? I clearly remember I was close to 17 years old and I started crying. Sat there and I said that I don't think this should repeat again in my life. I don't want my Diwali ever to be the darkest day of my life. It was like this surreal moment where you are talking to yourself and you're like also complaining to God and telling, like, how did we land here? And what am I going to do to get out of this? I didn't know then. I was 17. I didn't know how I was going to get out of that situation. But I did know it was never going to repeat again because it was this kind of anger mixed with this promise to myself this should never repeat in my life. And so when I look to my life today, I think the work that I've started doing on working with families and helping them to plan their financial future stems from that experience. And when we talk about healing and writing. It's a part of this whole process. And I'm sure as we evolve in our conversation, I'll have an opportunity to share more about that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That was actually very intense and deep, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's interesting that sometimes the worst possible things that could happen in life end up influencing the best possible things that come afterwards. But it's always, are we able to make it through that darkest period onto the other side and kind of keep that hope going? So obviously you kept that hope going, which is why we're here having this conversation, which is why you're enlightening my life, and in the lives of so many other people. I read in your bio now you've worked in different countries. You worked in India, you worked in Indonesia, and now you're here. And through all that, you experience different cultures, you experience different people. I talk a lot about identity and culture and how it influences the way we lead. I just want to know if you had any experience of having to choose between who you are, the promise you make to yourself, how you want to lead, and the expectations of other people and other cultures, and how you navigated that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question, Ada, because I moved countries and then, I'm here now for almost living in US for close to 8 years. And it kind of showed up a lot on day to day. Moreover, I think it showed up once I became a mother because the way we parent here to the way I was parented back in my home country, there is an absolute contrast. Here, when a child is born, we put the infants away from generally what I hear is, infant is put in another room. You have, within few weeks old, some of them are even put in a daycare. I co-slept when I was growing up. So when the whole idea came between me and my husband that my son should be put away in a crib, it was foreign to me. It was different. And even though he's from India, he's lived a lot of his life here in the US. So definitely also this whole thing about kids can roll over and die if they're is the whole fear. I don't know. These were some of the choices that we had to make. And I stood my ground because I was like, yes, I'm going to be very much mindful of that. And I want my child close to me, like especially when they're so young, to put them away from you, and sometimes it's very hard. So I stood my ground, and even when it came to feeding my son, we were right in midst of COVID and there was no vaccination. I was breastfeeding him and it was almost over a year. I'm thankful I chose a role of being a stay at home mom. Even then, I wanted to continue, but I know I was ridiculed. I was ridiculed by my partner. I was ridiculed by even, making a visit to his pediatrician who said, oh, slowly you need to wean off. And to me, it was like, I don't have a way to protect him. When I was researching, I understood that the mother's milk gives him more immunity than anything else. And I said that I don't want to stop that. I don't want to stop that. And I weaned him off. It took some time. I went up to 3 years, and that's very unheard of. But as a choice, it was a choice as a mother I took. It was risky. People made fun who knew about it. They were like, oh, you're making him too dependent. I just feel that it's personal. It's what you feel right for you. And sometimes you don't have to follow what the herd is doing. So, these were some very deep decisions that I had to take from a culture perspective. But what I would like to highlight is being authentic and true to myself. I think that is the most important thing for any person wherever you are navigating, and very specifically from a culture perspective, stay true to who you are. The road is bumpy, but you are going to be happy at the end of it. I don't want to take responsibility of making other people happy by following what they ask me to follow. I'm responsible to make myself happy and satisfied and ensure in the process I'm bonding with my son.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking, that's one of the hardest things too, because in general, as women, we are held to an entirely different standard. And not just by other people, but even by other women, and worst case, even by ourselves, right? So, regardless of what you do, there's always going to be something to say about that. And then when it comes to mothering and how you mother, one of the things I learned quickly here was just to tune everybody out. But it took me a while because they're all this perfect mom that did all these perfect things that, made shapes, food in form of shapes for their kids and did everything from, there's always something that you're going to be judged for. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's really hard to make a decision about how to parent your kid. And it's much harder to do that than to wrangle a team of 100 people because, again, this is all so close and personal. But I like what you said about the most important thing being true to yourself and considering the culture that you're in. And this applies to your personal life, your relationships, or whether you're at work, and then deciding this is how I want to do it. And then, regardless of what's happening around you, sticking to that has to have been the hardest thing. I thank you for sharing that story and highlighting how important it is for us to stay true to ourselves, because ultimately, it's better when you're at peace and aligned.
Yeah, it is true.
Thank you. All right, so this kind of leads well into emotional intelligence, right? So you talk about mindful living and what it takes to be yourself, to be authentic, to live the kind of life that you want. So can you tell us what really helped you, like something that other people can take away and do to build that strength, that emotional strength, to be able to stay authentic to themselves through whatever they're going through in life, whether it's a life transition or taking a new career or moving to a new place. Give us some tools that helped you that we and the audience listening can also apply to be able to practice emotional intelligence and just be authentic more.
I think one of the most important thing I did, and I didn't even know I was journaling. I used to just write whatever I felt. And because I used to hear all these voices in my head because I've battled depression, like I said, I didn't know. So I was just writing whatever was inside me. And it was much later in life I understood that what I was doing was actually journaling. And I definitely would encourage people to do that because we are living very isolated lives. Even though we are connected with a lot of smart gadgets, but all of us are isolated in some way, right? When I was able to do that, when I would sit with myself and I started writing, it would help me at the end of putting all my thoughts and emotions and pain and whatever I was feeling. I just felt so light and so much better, more peaceful. If you're asking me one thing I would really encourage everyone is just to spend some time with yourself. That is one. And if you can, just sit with a pen and paper and pour it out. Sometimes you don't have the people, or even the people whom you think are close to you, sometimes are traveling, or you feel distant with them for different reasons. You do need to share. In situations like this, you are your best friend. And writing helps you to become that. Befriend yourself. My experience taught me that the minute I started doing that, I just started enjoying being in my own company and having, and even in those moments is when, those, as if, you connect with the higher power, and then I think slowly it also led me on the path of practicing meditation, yoga. It kind of started building from there. But I think the first step was journaling. And if there is one thing I would really encourage, is journaling.
I love that you said that. I used to do this when I was younger. I didn't know it was journaling. But if I'm going through stuff, I'll sit down and write. And when I'm done, I'll feel a whole lot better. Now I don't do that so much because, you're a parent, you have work, life gets so busy. I would really love to go back to that. But that is actually really very important. And I've seen a lot of research, now that we have devices and we kind of tend to like want to type into our phone or type into our computers,
Yeah.
the research that says that when you actually put pen to paper, it's very therapeutic, it's very different. It's not the same as the voice note or the typing. So that's really important. And there's something else you said that I love, which is be your own best friend.
Yes.
Because the thing that we find happens more often is that we're our own worst critic. We give everybody else grace, but when it comes to ourselves, we don't. So I love that you say that, and it's something that we should just take away with. Initially, as a young kid, you want to have friends, you want to have best friends. Having a best friend is there's somebody else, there's the other, right? But thinking of being your own best friend, it means that you have to be full and complete so that you can give. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't think we ever outgrow when we give ourselves less grace. If you think, be your own best friend, it helps a lot. In being your own best friend, you can be other people's best friend. That's what you're doing now through your company. And you help people align money with meaning. From the beginning, you talked about the experience you had that shaped your life and how you promised yourself that you're going to have a better Diwali celebration going forward. So now you're working with people to help them align their money with meaning and to use money as a tool to go to freedom.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people in your business right now?
Yeah. So that's very interesting, and thanks you brought this up. So, what we do is we work with families, and I wouldn't just say families, we work with anyone who is open to this. We try to understand their life goals. What are they looking at? Because when you talk about freedom and when we're talking about financial freedom, we want to ensure that the things that are important, because we all are at different phases in life. Some people are in a phase of young children growing up, so you want to plan for their college funding. You want to also plan for your own retirement. You also want to plan for your long term care. So, depending upon at what stage each family or individuals are, we work and try to understand what are their different sources of income they have, like different streams they have. Or you might just have a salary, you have two people working in a family, their salary. And then we look at, after all the expenses are taken care of, what is it that they have and they can put forward towards their future. This is a bit of work because we need to work with everyone's budget. People have to also think of life and entertainment and travel. So we work family wise with each individual, trying to understand where they stand, where they want to go, and what are the resources they have. Within the same resources, what all can they attain and achieve, and how also they can find avenues to add to their resources. So the work I do is not just about helping people get financially secure, but also sharing this income stream that they could come and join the business, and we teach them how to do this business. It's twofold. They have an opportunity to not only build a financially secure future, but also have a second stream of income if they are open to. That's the work that we do.
And that's very important, especially now. I mean, it's always been important, but once upon a time, if you had a job, you could pretty much do that job for so many years, retire, have a pension. That started changing, and now with AI, it's even changing more. One thing I tell a lot of young people that are either in college or graduating, and even my kids, is if there's nothing that you do, figure out a way to make money. It doesn't have to be associated with what you do for a living or what you went to school for. You just need to have options, because options will allow you to have a better life. Even if you have options and you show up at work, you show up differently, because you're not here because, oh my goodness, I need to do whatever it takes to pay
Yes.
my bill. You're here because you
Yes.
actually want to be here and love it here. You're comfortable. And the moment it's no longer comfortable, you can very easily just walk away. And they do things probably because you want to and no longer because you have to. I like the part where you not only help people get their finances in order, figure out how to create their freedom for themselves, but also create opportunities for themselves as well. And in turn, other people. Because when you build something, even if you're a solopreneur, you're still hiring people to do certain things for you. So when you build
Yes.
something, you have an opportunity to give others opportunity to make a living. So if you're the kind of person that actually wants to give back, make an impact in that way, it's very fulfilling. So you're
Absolutely.
transforming the world, making an impact, and changing how people live. So thank you so much for sharing that. Again, we're going to share all the information about advisors in the show notes. You can check it out and check Veena out and talk to her more about other questions you have. So let's talk about mental health, because I think the turning point for everybody in this world was COVID. Right? And we started talking more about it and being more aware of it, because before COVID, we had the choice of ignoring whatever was going on with us and, walking our way, piling work on ourselves so we don't get to think. But COVID was like you just sat at home, had nothing to do, had to deal with it. It's what's, in my opinion, an incredible opportunity, because it gave us a chance to get to know ourselves and maybe for the first time heal, be aware of who we really are, what is going on in our lives, and how we can heal. I know that you had your own experience and your own way of healing. You talked about journaling, but I know you also did talk about this in your TEDx talk, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us how you healed? And please also mention the way you impacted people, even on the day off. But how do we get successful and resilient? By being very open about the fact that we need to take care of ourselves and our mental health and build that up as well.
It's a beautiful question, and this topic is very close to my heart. Definitely, because we have exchanged some thoughts on that. It comes from a deep personal experience, which I have shared in my TEDx talk as well. I had hit the lowest low in my life as a teenager. And I went through this whole journey to come out of it. And I would encourage the audience to go and watch my TEDx talk where I have talked about it. But in terms of what we can do as adults or what we want to build around us, the most important thing is to acknowledge in what space I am in. Most of the time, we've been taught and are teaching people to stop their expression of emotion, whether it is a good or a bad emotion. In different cultures, that's the kind of upbringing I've noticed everywhere within my own life. I think that is the biggest drawback, because if my emotion is constantly suppressed, it's going to show as a disease. Because if I constantly keep suppressing and I'm not at ease, and the environment around me also doesn't allow that, then by not putting myself at ease with being open about my expression, I'm going on a path of a disease and mental health issue. This requires a lot of soul searching also as humanity in different cultures and what we are building. The good part is a lot of us are now coming out in the open and sharing about it. Slowly, there is awareness, and more people are being open about their mental health battles. We see that social media has helped a lot of us come out of our closets and share about it. And then you have different platforms these days to share. So, my thought to everyone listening this podcast is first step is to acknowledge to yourself that there is something that is not okay. Sometimes some phases are temporary, which is fine. But if for weeks and months you find yourself in situations where you start feeling more and more negative, you're upset, there is suicidal tendencies, I think that should be your alert. This is not okay. This is not me. This is not how my thinking was few weeks ago or few months ago. Why am I in that zone? So that is just acknowledging to yourself. Then you have to bring it out and trust there are people who are going to help you. If you don't find that support within your close circle of friends, there are other avenues of reaching out on helplines, or approaching a counselor or a therapist, depending who can help you in your journey. So acknowledgement, trusting that there are people who are going to help you is the second step. And then comes the healing part, because that can be a journey based on the situation that we would be facing from a mental health perspective. So my three pointers to anyone in this space would be: acknowledge first yourself, trust there are people and a community who can help you. And even if it is not in your immediate circle, there are people outside of that who can help you and trust you. And third is your healing journey, which could be, it can take different forms. It can be therapy. People go into retreats, they go into rehabs, they start following more spiritual practices that help them to heal. This is what I would like to tell everyone. If we see that happening to people around us, like especially for someone like me who's been through this journey, I have those antennas which can pick up when I see such patterns emerging. And I know that I have the liberty to go and talk to that person. I do, whether it's in family circle or friends. I wouldn't tell them directly, but I would just say, "You don't sound good. Is everything fine?" Things like that. Let's not push that under the carpet. Let's bring it out in the open and ask those people, because sometimes somebody is just a step away from ending their life. A few months ago, a relative of mine called me and said he was having suicidal thoughts. It shook me, but I was glad he called and he reached out. I started talking to him, and I realized he was having a difficult time in his marriage. And then definitely there were some things I told him. And eventually he's doing what he's doing, but he is in a better space. I wouldn't say completely out of that zone, still goes in and out of that zone, but he started taking some steps that has brought him some relief. And I'm glad he reached out. So I think we need to create that around us, because we don't know. Somebody could be just one step away from jumping off.
Especially when we're responsible for other people. And if you think about that, even if say you're not married, you don't have kids, you're still responsible for other people unless you're a hermit and you live by yourself and Amazon throws in food every day. And also, especially as leaders in organizations, when you're leading other people, or even if you don't have that title, but you show up every day and people depend on you. Because, like you said, one thing it does is helps you to be in a better state
Yes.
mentally, and it also helps you to not get sick, and that will prevent you from doing your work. There's this book with a lot of research behind it. It's called Feelings Buried Alive. Never Die. If anybody wants to go check it out, we don't seem to understand the impact of all the mental load that we carry. Because imagine showing up on work and you can show up to your employer, that you can show up to work. Prior to COVID, what do you say? And did you hurt yourself? Like, if there's nothing physical, then you can you can be serious. You have to be okay. But now that we know better, we do better, especially when we're responsible for other people, especially as leaders in whatever spaces we find ourselves. Everything you laid out just kind of reminded me of the reason why we're friends. Okay, because my TEDx kind of leads on the same thing of, whatever you're doing, self-awareness is really key. And then reaching out, to others in community is also very key. And in this particular case, reaching out to experts in this field, in addition to reaching out to community as well. So, and then going the next step to actually giving yourself time to process this and heal, because it's going to take time. And I remember when I was going to therapy, because I had a lot of death and grief was just a big thing. And one of the things the therapist said was that there's no, because I was like, I shouldn't be feeling this. So he was like, there's no way you should or shouldn't. It is what it is.
Yes.
Just acknowledge it and then let it go. I think that
Yes.
was one of the biggest things that I was ever told. So this is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It also leads into how we get past, heal better, become better people, become better leaders. Also depends on the stories that we tell ourselves. And if we tell ourselves the right stories, we inspire others, inspire ourselves. If we tell ourselves the wrong stories, it's a problem. You have written a book and been a co-author in a couple of others. So I wanted to especially talk about this one, your upcoming anthology, which is called The Family Puzzle, United or Divided. Because I'm really curious about that. Okay. It sounds like it's very interesting. You can mention other books, but can you just tell us why story holds power and why you're part of this anthology and what you hope to bring to the world with it?
Family is a core of every individual's, how how their lives play out, right? Because it is so fundamental to each one of us. In my case, I grew up in a big joint family back in India. Contrast to that is that now my son is growing up in a nuclear family in a different land. So it's important to tell that story, how these are two different contrasts of life, like in a foreign land, in a nuclear family, versus in your home country, in a big joint family. So I thought that this would be very interesting experience to share, how these contrasts, there's so much to learn in these two contrasts, which are getting played out in my own life. Also, every family, when you think of every family, they have their own puzzle to solve because each family is dealing with things and the way life shows up. It's their own puzzle. I know families which have battled somebody terminally ill and that person passed away. That is their puzzle of life. Did it bring the family together? Yes. Some families break away because it's too hard to bear that emotional load. It played out within my extended family that they lost a child. It impacted the relationship of the couple, not just with each other, but also with the extended family. I think each family is unique and there is a puzzle each family is solving based on how life is showing up. And these are interesting stories because each one is different. In some way, we are interconnected. So once this book is out, we'll get so many different perspectives. I will feel a connection to a story and I might get some wisdom from another story. This topic is very close to my heart and I'm writing my part in it. We have 108 authors who are also contributing, so it would be interesting to see views to this story. Once it's out, we will share more about it. This is one of the reasons I'm contributing to this anthology.
When you read this, you're going to find some things that you can relate to because we think they were very different, but we're really not that very different because we all experience the same things in our own different ways. When is this book going to come out? At least we know how long we have to wait.
This It is going to release next year. We were hoping that all of our work is going to get done by this year end, but the release date is pushed. I think spring of next year is when this book is going to be out. And I'm hoping by then we'd be able to complete all the work around it.
Yeah, so we're going to stay close to Veena
Yes.
and make sure that we don't miss the launch of this book. Mina is an incredible writer and storyteller. If you can't wait for the till next year, go and listen to her TEDx talk and read her other anthologies as well. And then that will give you something to do while you're waiting for this new book to come out. And I'm very interested in reading. So, what are you going to say for someone that is uncertain but wants to lead in a way that is authentic to them? Want to be able to build up their self confidence so that when they're leading others, it's authentic, they're aligned. What would you say to them, especially if they don't know how to do that or where to start?
It's very interesting. I think it comes from, if I have to say one thing, take your first step to love yourself. It is not easy. I have been working on it all my life. And I think I've gotten better with accepting myself, who I am, and loving myself, loving some parts of me which are not comfortable even for me, accepting myself. So self-love and acceptance is very important. I think slowly as we start this journey, you automatically will start seeing how you start flowering. And this is the first step. It takes time. The reason I say it takes time is because personally it didn't come easy to me. It took me some time to accept myself with all the strengths that I have and all the areas that I need to work on. It took a while. So if someone younger than me is going to ask me today, I would just say that start your process of loving yourself. And I think journaling does help because when I pour myself on that sheet of paper or my diary, I empty myself. And then there is a lot of space inside me. I'm able to then see myself as who I am. And then there comes a point then it's like, oh, I'm magical, I'm pure. And yes, there are experiences that have shaped me. It also comes with a deep Hindu belief. Like, as a Hindu, I believe in karma. That has really helped me to accept also because there are a lot of things that got played out in my life and I drew judgments on myself. And then I was living with so much guilt and heaviness. But the more I started adopting the karma philosophy, to believe that I just don't have this life, I have lived multiple lives and I have had exchanges. In this case, just to make it simple, I have met you at my previous life and we've been friends, or some exchanges happened and we meet again in this life. So, whether those exchanges have been pleasant or unpleasant, not just with different people, I think once I started having that acceptance that I set some causes in motion in my previous lives for which in this life I am experiencing an effect. For example, some relationship didn't work out, whether it's love or friendship. Some of those causes I had set in motion in previous lives. So I think when I started adopting more of that philosophy, I had greater acceptance of myself. And when I started accepting myself more, that's when love came in. So that has really helped me. And if you ask me, that's my message to all the young people or people in different stages of their life.
Because if you don't accept yourself, how can you be authentic to yourself?
Yes.
And how can you lead from an authentic place confidently?
Yeah.
It just is not going to work. And sometimes we skip the self acceptance part and we might lead, but it's not going to be our best work. So if you take nothing away from this, accept yourself, be comfortable and choose to. The river flows And it's just so easy. And
Yes.
sometimes that's the reason why with some meditation, they usually show the flow of water, because there's something calming about the fact that there's no struggle with the flow of water. So self acceptance allows you to flow. There's no struggle. And it's therapeutic in its own way. It gives you a chance to be authentic and lead from that place and be able to create an impact with the people that you're responsible for or that are your manager, like team, life, family, or whatever it might be. Veena, I want to say thank you so much. This has been incredible, enlightening, and I know that people listening to this have a lot they're going to take away from this episode. They'll probably come back and listen again and again. I'm sure I would. In my mind, I was just thinking I have to listen to this with some people in my life. Can you tell us, Veena, what are you working on right now, and how can people find you and connect with you or collaborate with you?
That's great. So people can find me on LinkedIn as Veena Chugh, and I do have also Artha Advisors Insta account, and a Facebook page for Artha Advisors. That's how they can connect with me. Currently, I'm working on my book anthology and expanding my business. I want to reach out to more and more people to help them, make them financially aware and financially secure, and at the same time, give opportunities to people who are looking to set up a side hustle or a second income stream. So they could reach out to me through these avenues. Also, they can write to me at chug.veena@gmail.com. That's my email address. And I'm excited of this journey, the way it is unfolding. There are many projects evolving as well, but it's too early to talk about them. These are some of the projects that I'm working on.
Yeah, so I just want to mention Veena is an incredible poet. And in addition to being a great storyteller, so if you love poetry, if you love storytelling, definitely follow her on LinkedIn and again connect with her to learn how to lead authentically. If you realize that you need a certain level of financial freedom, you need to look at wealth in a different way. Think more long term and create that space for you and your family to be everything you want to be. Then reach out to her through LinkedIn or other advisors. We're going to share all the information in the show notes just so that you can have the best life possible with Veena helping you. So everyone listening, make sure again you follow Veena on LinkedIn and tag her and me. There's a legend on LinkedIn. Share with us what you've learned from this episode. And if there's anything that you appreciated, is there anything that you know now that you didn't know before and you feel like is going to change the way you live? Tag me on LinkedIn and let us know. We'd be very happy to hear from you. All right, go ahead and follow us and make sure to do that. Veena, what do you have to say before we end this conversation for this time? Because we're going to talk again, I'm sure.
Yes, for sure, Ada. First of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share these thoughts with your viewers. My closing line would be just dream big and love yourself, and don't stop no matter what is happening. Give yourself a second chance. You deserve it.
So dream big, love yourself, be confident, and lead boldly so you can create impact. Thank you, Veena. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And we will bring you another incredible guest. Until then, bye.
Okay, bye.